Beneath the marble floors of the Vatican, where millions of pilgrims bow down before the majesty of faith, lies another world. A world of ancient tunnels, forbidden chambers, and secrets that the Church has guarded for 2 centuries. Officially, these underground passages are closed and abandoned. But insiders claim otherwise. Ceremonies rooted in pre-Christian cults are still held there. Secret groups possessing forbidden knowledge use these rituals in their struggle for power. The Vatican denies everything. But then why do people who try to uncover the truth disappear without a trace? Today we will descend into the depths beneath St. Peter's Basilica and try to find answers to questions that the Church does not want you to ask. If this investigation has made you wonder what other secrets institutions of power are hiding, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now for a question for discussion. Do you think the Church has the right to hide historical facts in order to preserve faith? Or should the truth always be available to people, no matter how uncomfortable it may be? Share your opinion in the comments. Beneath the marble floors of the Vatican, where thousands of pilgrims kneel every day before the majesty of the Holy See, lies another world. A world that is not spoken of aloud. A world of ancient tunnels, abandoned halls, and forbidden secrets. Dating back to the days when Christianity was just beginning, this is not a legend or a conspiracy theory. It is a reality, documented by archaeological research, but shrouded in silence. The first official mentions of the existence of underground structures beneath St. Peter's Basilica appeared in the 16th century, when workers stumbled upon ancient catacombs during the reconstruction of the cathedral. At the same time, the remains of pagan temples, altars, and cult rooms dating back to the 1st and 2nd centuries AD were discovered. The Church reacted immediately. Access to the underground was restricted, and all findings were classified under the pretext of preserving the sanctity of the place. However, the most disturbing discoveries occurred in the 18th century, when Pope Pius VI ordered a large-scale investigation of the underground labyrinths. A group of monk archaeologists descended into the depths beneath the Vatican and discovered a network of tunnels stretching for several kilometers. According to their reports, some of the rooms contained strange symbols unrelated to Christian tradition. Moreover, traces of recent human presence were found in several rooms. The remains of candles, sacrificial bowls, and manuscripts in Latin, the contents of which were never made public. After this investigation, the Pope issued a strict decree, completely prohibiting access to the underground chambers for anyone, except a small circle of trusted individuals. The official version stated that this was necessary to protect ancient artifacts from destruction. The unofficial version, whispered among Vatican officials, claimed something else. Something was happening down there that should not see the light of day. More than 200 years have passed since then, but access to these underground chambers remains closed. Official tours take tourists only to a small part of the necropolis beneath the basilica, carefully prepared and cleared of anything compromising. The real depths remain off-limits, even to most church officials. What is hidden in these ancient tunnels? Why does the Vatican so carefully guard a secret that has been kept for several centuries? And most importantly, is there really something going on down there that contradicts the official position of the Church? To understand what exactly may be hidden in the depths beneath the Vatican, we must return to the origins of this place. Long before the first Christian basilica was built here, Vatican Hill was a sacred place for Roman pagans. Archaeological excavations prove beyond doubt that this land was home to temples and shrines dedicated to ancient deities, whose cults existed centuries before the birth of Christ. The most significant of these cults was Mithraism, a mysterious religion that came to Rome from Persia in the 1st century BC. Mithras, the god of the sun and justice, was worshipped in underground shrines called Mithraea. These cult rooms were specially built underground, in complete darkness, symbolizing the cave where, according to myth, Mithras performed his greatest deed, the sacrifice of the sacred bull, which gave life to all beings. When Christianity became the state religion of the Roman Empire in the 4th century, pagan temples were subjected to mass destruction. However, Mithraea, located deep underground, often remained untouched. Moreover, there is evidence that some of them continued to function secretly, despite the official ban. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of at least 3 Mithraea beneath St. Peter's Basilica, one of which is located directly beneath the cathedral's main altar. This detail is not accidental. Early Christian builders deliberately erected churches on the sites of pagan shrines, symbolically asserting the superiority of the new faith over the old. But what if not everything was destroyed? What if some elements of ancient cults survived, adapted, and continued to exist in the shadow of the Christian Church? Among the artifacts found in the Vatican's underground chambers, ritual objects that cannot be clearly classified as Christian or pagan attract particular attention. Sacrificial bowls with mixed symbols, altars with double inscriptions, statues combining attributes of different religious traditions. These findings suggest that at a certain period of time, something more than a simple archaeological stratification of cultures may have been taking place under the Vatican. Particularly intriguing is the fact that some Mithraea show signs of use during a period when Christianity was already the dominant religion. Traces of soot from torches dating back to the 5th and 6th centuries, remains of ritual animal sacrifices found in layers dating back to the Middle Ages. All this points to the possibility of the existence of secret pagan communities that continued their rituals right under the nose of the Christian Church. But how deep could this infiltration have gone? And could these ancient cults have survived to this day, hiding in forgotten tunnels under the Vatican? The 18th century was a turning point in the history of the Vatican's underground passages. It was then that the Church faced a dilemma: to continue to hide the existence of the ancient tunnels, or to conduct a systematic investigation of them. Pope Pius VI made a decision whose consequences are still felt today. In 1783, a secret commission of 12 monk archaeologists was formed, who were given unprecedented access to the forbidden areas under the Basilica. The expedition was led by Father Giovanni Battista Visconti, an experienced researcher of antiquity and keeper of the papal archives. His diaries, only partially declassified in the 20th century, contain descriptions that still spark debate among historians. According to Visconti's notes, the group discovered a network of tunnels extending far beyond the known necropolis. Some passages led to underground halls, the size of a small church, whose vaults were supported by columns with weathered inscriptions in Latin and Greek. But the most disturbing discovery awaited the explorers deep within the labyrinth. In one of the remote halls, they stumbled upon a room that had clearly been used relatively recently. On the floor lay the remains of candles made using technology characteristic of the 18th century. Symbols were inscribed on the walls, which Visconti was unable to identify despite his extensive erudition. In the center of the hall was a stone altar with a recess for sacrifices, on which traces of blood still remained. Visconti's diary contains a description of another discovery that terrified the monks. In a small niche, they found a manuscript on parchment dated to the 16th century. The text was a description of a ritual dedicated to an ancient deity, whose name Visconti chose not to record. According to the manuscript, the ceremony was performed by a select group of initiates every full moon, and was intended to obtain secret knowledge and power over the material world. After returning to the surface, Visconti presented a detailed report to the Pope. 3 days later, Pius VI issued a decree ordering the immediate sealing of all discovered passages leading to the deep levels of the underground. The entrances were walled up with massive stone blocks and sealed with papal seals. All participants in the expedition were ordered to maintain strict silence under threat of excommunication from the Church. However, sealing the tunnels did not stop the rumors. Stories began to spread among Vatican officials about strange sounds coming from underground, on certain nights of the year. Some Swiss guards on night duty claim to have seen dark figures gliding through the corridors of the Basilica and disappearing in the direction of the sealed entrances. There were even reports that sometimes the seals were broken and footsteps could be heard echoing behind the stone blocks. The Church vehemently denied all these testimonies, explaining them away as figments of the imagination or the machinations of enemies of Catholicism. But the fact remains, since the tunnels were sealed in the 17th century, the Vatican has repeatedly conducted secret checks on the seals. Why such precautions if there really is no one down there? And who exactly could be in the abandoned dungeons, which have been officially closed for more than 200 years? Mithraism did not disappear with the adoption of Christianity. This religion proved to be surprisingly resilient, despite all attempts to eradicate it. Unlike other pagan cults, which gradually dissolved under the pressure of the new faith, Mithraism went underground and continued to exist in secret societies. Historians have found evidence of Mithraic communities operating in Europe until the 9th century. That is, almost 500 years after the official ban. A distinctive feature of Mithraism was its secrecy. It was a religion of the initiated, where each adept went through 7 stages of initiation. The rites were performed exclusively in underground temples, the entrance to which was guarded by the strictest secrecy. Neophytes took a vow of silence, the violation of which was punishable by death. This structure allowed the cult to survive even under severe persecution by the Christian Church. The central element of the Mithraic faith was the ritual of tauroctony, the slaughter of a bull. According to mythology, the god Mithras killed a cosmic bull, and from its blood all life on earth arose. This act symbolized the victory of light over darkness, order over chaos. The initiates reproduced this ritual in their ceremonies, using the real blood of sacrificial animals. Archaeological finds in Mithraea throughout Europe confirm that these rites were practiced regularly and with great care. What connects ancient Mithraism with modern theories about secret cults under the Vatican? First, geographical location. Vatican Hill was one of the most important centers of Mithraism in Rome. It was home to the largest and most revered Mithraea, frequented by members of the Roman elite, including emperors and senators. Second, architectural continuity. Many early Christian basilicas were built directly over Mithraea, using their foundations and underground rooms. But there is a third, more disturbing aspect. Some historical documents mention groups of Christian priests who secretly practiced elements of Mithraic rituals, combining them with Christian worship. This practice, known as religious syncretism, was widespread in the early centuries of Christianity. The Church fought fiercely against such deviations, but failed to eradicate them completely. Medieval Inquisition documents contain references to heretical sects that practiced ancient rites in underground temples. Although there is no direct evidence linking these sects to Mithraism, the description of their ceremonies is strikingly similar to Mithraic rituals. Underground shrines, animal sacrifices, initiations through trials, and a strict hierarchy of degrees. Some of these sects operated in Rome, which makes the connection with the Vatican underground even more likely. Modern researchers have discovered an interesting detail. The tunnel system under the Vatican is designed in such a way that it creates ideal conditions for secret meetings. The acoustics of some of the rooms allow sounds to be transmitted over long distances, but make it impossible to determine their source. The temperature and humidity remain constant throughout the year. There are natural ventilation shafts that provide a supply of fresh air. All this leads to the thought, what if ancient cults not only survived in these underground chambers, but also flourished, adapting to new conditions and continuing to pass on their traditions from generation to generation? History knows many people who have tried to uncover the secrets of the Vatican's underground chambers. Most of them met a strange fate. Their testimonies end abruptly. They disappear without a trace, or they are found dead under mysterious circumstances. Coincidence? Perhaps. But the number of such cases makes one think about the systematic nature of what is happening. The first high-profile case was the story of Carlo Mancini, an archaeologist who worked in the Vatican archives in 1847. Mancini received permission to study the ancient plans of the Basilica and accidentally stumbled upon drawings dating back to the 16th century, which marked entrances to underground passages that did not correspond to the official maps. Intrigued, he began his own investigation. In letters to a colleague in Florence, Mancini mentioned astonishing discoveries and promised to soon provide evidence of ongoing activity in restricted areas. A week after his last letter, Carlo Mancini disappeared. The Vatican's official version was that the archaeologist had left Rome for personal reasons. However, his belongings remained in his rented apartment. No money was withdrawn from his bank account, and no tickets for any form of transport were purchased in his name. Mancini's body was never found. All of his research materials, including the drawings he had found, disappeared without a trace from the archives. 100 years later, a similar fate befell Maria Sorrentino, a journalist who specialized in investigating church scandals. In 1948, she published a series of articles on corruption in the Vatican, after which she received information from an anonymous source about secret meetings held in the basement of the Basilica. Sorrentino managed to contact a former Swiss guard who claimed to have personally seen a group of people in strange robes entering one of the sealed passages late at night. The journalist began an active investigation, gathering evidence and documents. Her last article, which was never published, promised shocking revelations about what is happening under the Vatican. The day before the planned publication, Maria Sorrentino died in a car accident on an empty road in clear weather. The police considered it an accident, but experts who examined the wreckage found signs of tampering with the brake system. The investigation was quickly closed, and all of Sorrentino's materials disappeared from her office before the police even arrived. In the 1990s, independent paranormal investigators made several attempts to penetrate the forbidden areas of the underground. A group of 4 people claimed to have found an unsealed entrance to the tunnels through a system of old sewer collectors. They spent one night there, taking several photographs and video recordings. The next day, all 4 were detained by the Vatican Gendarmerie on charges of illegal entry. After a short imprisonment, they were deported from Italy with a ban on re-entry. All the footage was confiscated and never returned. The most recent known case occurred in 2012. Marco Vitali, a professor of religious history at a Roman university, announced that he had evidence of the existence of an active occult cult linked to the highest ranks of the church. He scheduled a press conference, at which he promised to present documents and photographs. 2 days before the event, Vitali was found dead in his apartment. The cause of death was reported as a heart attack, although the professor had never complained of health problems. All of his research materials disappeared, and his computer was completely wiped clean by a professional. How far are those who guard the secrets of the Vatican's underground willing to go? And what exactly are they trying so desperately to hide? The architecture of the Vatican is full of mysteries, and the deeper you dig, literally and figuratively, the more questions arise. Official plans of St. Peter's Basilica show a relatively simple structure of underground rooms: a necropolis, several crypts, and technical communications. But a comparison of old drawings with modern maps reveals significant discrepancies. Entire sections of the underground chambers are simply missing from the current plans, as if they had been erased from official history. These vanished rooms were documented by Renaissance architects working on the reconstruction of the Basilica in the 16th century. Master Donato Bramante, the chief architect of the project under Pope Julius II, left detailed drawings showing extensive halls and corridors under the main nave. According to his records, some of these rooms extended to a depth of more than 30 meters, much deeper than the necropolis known to tourists. Bramante also mentioned strange symbols on ancient walls and entrances leading to unknown depths. The ventilation shaft system is particularly noteworthy. Modern analysis of airflows shows that there is a much more complex air circulation system under the Vatican than is required to service the known underground rooms. Engineers who studied this issue came to the conclusion that the ventilation is designed for a space several times larger than the official data. Where do these ventilation ducts lead? What rooms do they serve? The symbols decorating some of the accessible parts of the Vatican underground also raise questions. Among the Christian images and inscriptions, there are strange symbols that have no connection to biblical tradition. Pentagrams, inverted crosses, geometric figures with occult meanings. All of these can be found on the walls of ancient tunnels, if you know where to look. The Church explains their presence as the influence of pagan cults that existed before Christianization. But some of these symbols are made using techniques characteristic of a later period, the Middle Ages and even modern times. The entrances to the forbidden areas are carefully camouflaged. Most of them were bricked up in the 18th century and hidden behind later additions or decorative elements. However, witnesses claim that some passages remain functional. They are hidden behind movable wall panels, fake statues, or altars. The mechanisms for opening them are known only to the initiated and are passed on in strict secrecy. One such entrance, according to rumors, is located in the Sistine Chapel. Behind one of the lesser-known frescoes, there is allegedly a door leading to a system of service corridors, which, in turn, connect to ancient tunnels. Another entrance is believed to be located in the Vatican Library, in the section of forbidden books. The third is in the papal chambers, which would explain why access to this part of the palace is so restricted, even for high-ranking clergy. Interestingly, the location of some elements of Vatican architecture corresponds to astronomical and esoteric patterns. When viewed from above, St. Peter's Square forms the symbol of a key, an attribute of the Apostle Peter. But some researchers claim that the same layout, superimposed on a map of the underground passages, forms a completely different symbol, an ancient sign used in Mithraic rituals. Coincidence? Or deliberate duality, allowing Christian symbolism to be displayed on the surface and occult symbolism in the depths? The acoustic properties of some underground halls are also noteworthy. Acoustic engineers note that the configuration of the arches and the arrangement of the columns create a resonance effect at certain frequencies. These frequencies, according to psychoacoustics experts, can affect the human consciousness, causing altered states conducive to ritual practices. Ancient builders knew about these effects and used them in temple architecture. Is it possible that the Vatican's underground chambers were designed with this knowledge in mind? And if so, for what purpose? What exactly happens during these secret ceremonies in the Vatican's underground chambers? There is no direct evidence, but the piecemeal evidence gathered paints an alarming picture. Eyewitness accounts, leaked documents, and analysis of the historical practices of secret societies all point to the systematic performance of occult rituals whose roots go back to ancient times. According to the testimony of several former Vatican employees who agreed to speak anonymously, the ceremonies are held on specific dates that coincide with ancient pagan holidays. The days of the solstices and equinoxes, as well as the nights of the full moon, are of particular importance. During these periods, security is tightened in certain parts of the Vatican. Access is restricted even to permanent employees, and some areas are completely closed under the pretext of technical work or restoration. One witness, who worked in the Vatican Gendarmerie in the 1990s, recounted what he saw on the night of the summer solstice. Around midnight, a group of about 20 people in dark robes with hoods passed through a normally closed corridor leading to one of the sealed entrances to the underground passages. He was instructed to ignore what was happening and leave his post for 2 hours. When he returned, the corridor was empty, but there was a strange smell in the air, a mixture of incense not used in Catholic worship and something burnt. Another piece of evidence came from a restorer who worked in the Vatican in the early 2000s. While working in one of the less frequented chapels, he accidentally discovered an old-style listening device hidden in a decorative niche. Out of curiosity, he connected headphones to it and listened to what was happening in the room for several nights. Most of the time, the device transmitted silence or ordinary sounds, the footsteps of tourists, the voices of guides. But one night, he heard rhythmic singing in an unfamiliar language coming from somewhere below. The singing lasted about an hour, followed by a scream, after which everything fell silent. The restorer immediately left the Vatican and never returned. Historical analysis shows that the practices described have direct analogies with the rituals of ancient mystery cults. Mithraism, the Eleusinian mysteries, the cult of Cybele. All of them practiced night ceremonies in underground sanctuaries, used rhythmic singing and drumming to achieve trance, and performed symbolic or real sacrifices. The central idea of these cults was to obtain secret knowledge that would give power over the material world and people. Ancient artifacts appear to play a special role in the ceremonies. Several sources mention the use of relics that are officially considered lost or never to have existed. These are items associated with pre-Christian religions: ritual daggers, libation bowls, statuettes of pagan deities, and amulets with magical inscriptions. These artifacts are probably kept in secret vaults under the Vatican and used by initiates in their rituals. The symbols used in the ceremonies are a synthesis of Christian and pagan elements. Inverted crosses, pentagrams inscribed in circles, hexagrams. All these are classic occult symbols that are said to be used alongside Christian attributes. This mixture creates a kind of shadow theology, parallel to official Catholic doctrine, but based on completely different principles. According to researchers' theories, the purpose of these ceremonies is not religious worship in the usual sense, but the practical application of esoteric techniques to achieve earthly goals: political power, financial influence, control over the masses. Participants in these rituals probably view them as a tool for controlling reality, using ancient knowledge that the Church officially condemns but secretly preserves and applies. How effective are these practices, and who exactly is included in the circle of initiates who conduct ceremonies in forgotten dungeons beneath the heart of the Christian world? Why would influential people, possibly even high-ranking church hierarchs, need to participate in secret occult rituals? The answer lies in the very nature of power and the ways of retaining it. Throughout human history, secret societies and esoteric practices have served as a tool of control, allowing elites to rule the masses and influence the course of events in ways unavailable to ordinary people. Power in the ancient world was based not only on military force or economic domination, but also on control over knowledge. Priests possessed the secrets of mathematics, astronomy, and medicine, which seemed like magic to ordinary people. This knowledge was passed on only to the initiated, creating a closed elite that ruled society through the manipulation of consciousness. Mithraic cults, Orphic mysteries, Egyptian priestly schools, all of them represented a system of initiation into secret knowledge that gave real power. With the advent of Christianity, the situation paradoxically did not change, but only took on new forms. The Church monopolized education, controlled access to information, and decided what was true and what was heresy. But within the Church itself, there were groups that possessed knowledge beyond the official doctrine. These groups studied forbidden texts, practiced ancient techniques, and used symbols that were never explained to ordinary believers. Secret rituals served another purpose: to create unwavering loyalty among participants. A person who has undergone occult ceremonies is connected to the group not just by common interests, but by something much deeper. They share with other initiates an experience that cannot be discussed with the uninitiated. They know secrets whose disclosure would mean their destruction. This bond proves stronger than any official oaths or commitments. In the context of the Vatican, such a system takes on special significance. The Catholic Church is not just a religious organization, but also a powerful political and financial force that influences the fate of millions of people. Decisions made in the Vatican determine the policies of entire states, the direction of huge capital investments, and the fates of governments and leaders. A group of people with secret knowledge and bound by secret oaths can effectively control this power while remaining in the shadows of official structures. History knows many examples of how occult societies influenced key historical events. The Rosicrucians and their role in the religious wars of the 17th century. The Illuminati and their influence on the French Revolution. The Templars and their mysterious power which stretched from Jerusalem to the royal courts of Europe. All these organizations used esoteric teachings and secret rituals as tools of real political struggle. Contemporary theories claim that something similar exists under the Vatican, an elite group that uses ancient occult practices to achieve specific goals. These goals may include influencing papal elections, controlling Vatican finances, and shaping church policy on key contemporary issues. Participation in secret rituals serves as an initiation into this group, a test of loyalty, and at the same time, a means of gaining access to hidden knowledge and connections. The psychological aspect is also important. Participation in forbidden, potentially dangerous ceremonies creates a sense of belonging to something greater than oneself. It gives a feeling of being chosen, of superiority over those who are not privy to the secret. Such feelings are a powerful motivational tool. People who have experienced them are willing to go to great lengths to maintain their status in the group and protect shared secrets. In addition, the rituals themselves may include compromising information about the participants. If the ceremonies do indeed include elements that violate not only church canons, but also secular laws, then each participant automatically becomes vulnerable to blackmail by the group. This mutual vulnerability creates a system from which it is virtually impossible to escape without risking everything. One's career, reputation, freedom, and possibly even one's life. Is this system the reason for the Vatican's silence about what is happening in its underground chambers? And is it behind the disappearances of those who have tried to reveal the truth? The Vatican's official position on theories about secret cults in the underground is simple and unchanging. They are fabrications born of anti-Catholic propaganda and conspiracy fantasies. Every time new evidence or accusations emerge, the Holy See's press office issues a standard denial, claiming that such stories have no basis in reality and insult the dignity of the Church. However, a detailed analysis of the Vatican's official statements on this issue reveals some interesting features. First, the Church never grants full access to the underground chambers for independent investigation. All attempts by journalists, researchers, or even government commissions to inspect the restricted areas are met with categorical refusal. The explanations range from security concerns to the need to preserve the sanctity of the place. But the result is the same. No one except a small circle of trusted individuals can see what really lies beneath the Basilica. Second, the Vatican systematically prevents the publication of historical documents relating to the underground chambers. The church archives contain a huge amount of material on underground structures, but most of it is classified and inaccessible even to serious researchers. When Pope John Paul II announced the partial declassification of the Vatican archives in 2002, documents on the underground chambers were not included in the list of published materials. The official explanation was that these documents have no historical value. The third point concerns the fate of people who tried to investigate the subject of the underground passages from within the church hierarchy. Several priests and even bishops who expressed concern about rumors of secret ceremonies and called for an internal investigation were quickly and quietly removed from their posts. Officially, this was explained by various reasons, ranging from health problems to administrative reshuffles. But the pattern was repeated too often to be a coincidence. Particularly telling was the Vatican's reaction to the appearance on the internet in 2015 of a video allegedly showing part of an underground complex with unidentified symbols on the walls. The video quickly gained millions of views, sparking heated debate. The Vatican not only categorically denied the authenticity of the recording, but also had it removed from all major platforms through legal action. The Church's lawyers claimed that the video was fake and damaged the reputation of the Holy See. However, an independent examination conducted before the video was removed showed that the recording did not contain any obvious signs of editing. The Vatican's silence becomes even more telling in the context of its response to other scandals. When the Church faces allegations of financial fraud or sexual crimes by clergy, it reluctantly conducts investigations and publishes the results, albeit after long delays. In the case of the underground chambers, no investigation is being conducted at all. This is not simply a denial. It is an absolute taboo which is not even discussed in order to refute the details. Another important aspect is the behavior of the Vatican Gendarmerie. The Holy See's security service responds to attempts at unauthorized entry into the underground chambers with a severity that seems disproportionate to a normal border violation. Those detained are subjected to lengthy interrogations. Their equipment is confiscated and never returned, and they themselves are deported with a lifetime ban on entering the Vatican. Such a reaction is more reminiscent of measures to protect state secrets than the usual work of temple guards. The psychology of silence is also telling. When a person or organization is truly unrelated to the allegations, their denials are usually detailed and accompanied by evidence of innocence. The Vatican, however, limits itself to brief, formal statements, avoiding specifics. This is a classic sign of a defensive strategy, when details can reveal more than one would like. What exactly is the Holy See hiding behind a wall of official silence? And why is the truth about the underground so dangerous to the Church that it is willing to defend it at any cost? Archaeological finds under the Vatican are one of the most intriguing mysteries of modern science. Officially, the Church acknowledges the existence of a necropolis from the 1st and 2nd centuries, several early Christian tombs, and the remains of Roman buildings. However, eyewitness accounts and leaked information point to much more significant and disturbing discoveries that have never been made public. In the 1940s, during restoration work commissioned by Pope Pius XII, archaeologists stumbled upon an extensive complex of rooms dating back to the 1st century BC. The find was sensational. It was a well-preserved Mithraism with almost intact frescoes and sculptures. But the most striking thing was something else. In one of the rooms, archaeologists discovered a library containing dozens of scrolls and codices in Latin, Greek, and unknown languages. According to unofficial reports from participants in the excavations, some of these texts contained descriptions of rituals and practices that contradicted not only Christian teachings, but also known pagan traditions. They described techniques for controlling consciousness, manipulating the masses, and methods of achieving power through occult practices. One of the archaeologists working on the excavation later referred to these texts in a private conversation as a guide to controlling civilization through esoteric knowledge. The Vatican immediately classified the find. Officially, the discovery of several tombs from the early Christian period was announced. Not a word was said about the Mithraism, the library, or its contents. All participants in the excavation signed non-disclosure agreements, the violation of which threatened excommunication from the Church for Catholics and legal consequences for the rest. The texts found were taken to a secret part of the Vatican Library, where they are believed to be stored to this day. But this is not the only hidden find. In the 1960s, while laying new communications, workers accidentally broke through a wall leading to a previously unknown tunnel. This tunnel stretched far beyond the Vatican walls, towards the Tiber. Research showed that it connected the Basilica's underground chambers to another underground complex located beneath Castel Sant'Angelo, the former papal fortress. Another library was discovered in this complex, but this time it was medieval. The manuscripts found there dated from the 11th to the 14th centuries and contained records of the activities of secret societies within the Church. Some of the documents were reports on rituals performed, lists of participants, including the names of cardinals and even popes, and descriptions of the goals and methods of these groups. These findings proved that occult practices in the Vatican have not only ancient but also medieval roots. Of particular interest are the artifacts that, according to rumors, were found in the deepest parts of the dungeons. These are objects that, according to some researchers, possess real magical powers. Among them are mentioned a black obsidian mirror used for divination rituals, a staff with unknown symbols made of meteorite iron, and an unusually shaped crystal that creates strange optical effects. The scientific community rejects the idea of magical artifacts. But why then are these objects kept in absolute secrecy? Modern technology would allow for a thorough investigation of the Vatican's underground chambers without physical intrusion. Ground-penetrating radar, seismic tomography, laser scanning. All these methods could create a detailed map of all the rooms and reveal hidden spaces. Several universities and research centers have offered to conduct such a scan free of charge in the interests of science and history. All offers have been rejected by the Vatican without explanation. Why is the Church so afraid of archaeological research in its underground chambers? What exactly might be discovered if scientists were given full access to the restricted areas? Perhaps there is evidence of a secret tradition parallel to official Christianity, with roots in pre-Christian cults. Perhaps the texts found contain information that could shake the foundations of the Catholic faith, or reveal uncomfortable truths about the methods by which the Church has achieved and maintained power over the centuries. Or perhaps there is something even more disturbing hidden there. Evidence that ancient occult practices not only existed in the past, but continue to be practiced in the present? The connection between the Vatican's underground chambers and European secret societies can be traced throughout the history of Christianity. The Templars, the Rosicrucians, various Masonic lodges. All these organizations have at various times been accused of links to occult practices and secret knowledge. But how deep did these connections penetrate into the Vatican itself? The Order of the Templars is of particular interest. Founded in the 12th century as a military monastic organization to protect pilgrims in the Holy Land, the order quickly became a powerful force with enormous wealth and political influence. The Knights Templar built an extensive network of fortresses, temples, and underground vaults throughout Europe and the Middle East. The official story is that the order was destroyed in the 14th century on charges of heresy and occultism. However, there is evidence that the relationship between the Templars and the Vatican was much more complex than the official version suggests. Several high-ranking members of the order had family ties to cardinals and popes. There were Templar representatives in Rome itself, and there is reason to believe that there were physical connections between them and the Vatican underground. Tunnels known only to the initiated. When, in 1307, Pope Clement V, under pressure from the French King Philip IV, began persecuting the Templars, not all members of the order were arrested. A significant number of knights disappeared, taking with them the order's treasury, and more importantly, a library containing secret knowledge collected over the 2 centuries of the order's existence. Where did these treasures go? One theory claims that they were secretly transported to the Vatican and hidden in the underground chambers under the protection of influential clergymen who were themselves connected to the esoteric traditions of the order. The Rosicrucians are another mysterious organization whose ties to the Vatican have long been discussed by researchers. This movement, which announced itself in the 17th century through a series of anonymous manifestos, claimed to possess ancient secret knowledge, including alchemy, Kabbalah, and Hermeticism. The Rosicrucians claimed that their tradition dated back to ancient mystery cults and had been preserved through the centuries by secret transmission from teacher to student. Interestingly, among the well-known Rosicrucians were Catholic priests and even representatives of the Vatican Curia. One of the most famous cases is the story of Cardinal Giulio Mazarin, the first minister of France in the 17th century, who, according to some sources, was initiated into the Rosicrucian Brotherhood. Mazarin had unlimited access to the Vatican archives and allegedly took copies of some forbidden texts from there, which were later used in Rosicrucian ceremonies. Freemasonry, which emerged in the 18th century, also had a complex relationship with the Catholic Church. Officially, the Vatican condemned Freemasons and forbade Catholics from joining lodges under threat of excommunication. However, historical documents show that many priests, and even several cardinals, were secret members of Masonic lodges. This duality, public condemnation and secret participation, is characteristic of the relationship between the Church and esoteric societies. Particularly indicative is the story of the Propaganda II Lodge, also known as P2, which was embroiled in scandal in Italy in the 1980s. An investigation revealed that this lodge included influential Vatican officials, bankers, and politicians. The lodge was involved not only in ritual practices, but also in real conspiracies, including financial fraud involving the Vatican Bank. After the exposure, several people associated with the lodge died or disappeared under mysterious circumstances. All these connections point to the existence of a parallel structure within and around the Vatican, a network of people united not by official church ties, but by secret oaths and esoteric practices. The basement of the Basilica could have served as a meeting place for this network, where representatives of various esoteric traditions gathered to perform ceremonies and exchange knowledge. This would explain why the Vatican so carefully guards the secret of the underground chambers. Their disclosure could reveal not only traces of ancient cults, but also evidence of a network of influence that still exists today, extending far beyond the Church and connected to the most influential people in the world. Is the history of secret societies the history of a parallel civilization that controls the visible world from the shadows of underground sanctuaries? The 21st century has brought new technologies and new opportunities for those seeking to penetrate the mysteries of the Vatican's underground chambers. Drones with infrared cameras, portable ground-penetrating radar, miniature video cameras. All of this has opened up unprecedented opportunities for researchers and journalists. However, the Vatican was ready for this challenge, significantly strengthening its security systems and tightening control over access to restricted areas. In 2008, a group of researchers from a German university attempted to use remote seismic sounding to map the underground spaces beneath the Basilica. They installed sensors in St. Peter's Square, planning to collect data on soil vibrations over several weeks that could reveal hidden voids. The experiment was stopped by the Vatican Gendarmerie after 3 days. The equipment was confiscated, and the researchers were asked to leave Vatican territory. The official explanation was that their activities were disturbing tourists and disrupting public order. In 2012, an anonymous group of activists calling themselves truth seekers attempted to use a drone to film ventilation shafts leading to the underground. The drone was equipped with a night vision camera and could penetrate narrow spaces. According to the group's statements, they managed to obtain several minutes of video footage from one of the shafts before the drone was shot down by an electronic warfare system. The video allegedly showed a lit room deep underground and moving human figures. The recording was published on the internet but was removed from all platforms a few hours later at the request of Vatican lawyers. A more sophisticated attempt was made in 2016. A journalist from an Italian investigative publication got a job at a company that services the Vatican's engineering communications. For 8 months, he gathered information, photographed plans, and recorded conversations with colleagues. His goal was to find a way to legally access the restricted areas of the underground passages under the pretext of technical work. However, his identity was revealed by the Vatican Security Service before he could carry out his plan. The journalist was fired, and criminal proceedings were brought against him on charges of industrial espionage. An interesting incident occurred in 2019 when a group of amateur speleologists claimed to have discovered an ancient tunnel connecting the Roman catacombs with the Vatican's underground passages. They claimed to have walked several kilometers through the tunnel and stumbled upon a walled-up entrance bearing papal seals from the 18th century. An attempt to open the entrance triggered an alarm. Within 30 minutes, a rapid response team from the Vatican Gendarmerie arrived on the scene. The speleologists were detained, questioned, and released with a warning. A week later, the entrance to the tunnel they had discovered from the catacombs was sealed with concrete. The most recent known attempt dates back to 2022. A hacker working under the pseudonym Digital Crusader hacked into the Vatican's video surveillance system and gained access to 5 years' worth of recordings. Among the terabytes of data, he found several video clips taken by cameras in little-known parts of the Vatican complex. One of the videos showed a group of people in dark robes entering a door that, according to official plans, was supposed to lead to a technical room. The hacker posted screenshots on the darknet, along with the camera coordinates. Within 24 hours, his identity was established, and he was arrested by Italian police at the request of the Vatican. These incidents demonstrate not only the tenacity of the researchers, but also the extremely high level of protection that the Vatican has placed around its underground facilities. We are talking about a multi-level security system that includes physical security, electronic surveillance, electronic warfare, and even cybersecurity. Such measures are more typical of military facilities or secret government agencies than religious institutions. Why does the Church need such powerful protection for its ancient tunnels? In addition, the response to each intrusion attempt demonstrates a high level of coordination and responsiveness. Early warning systems respond to any activity near restricted areas within minutes. This indicates constant readiness and monitoring of the situation. It seems that someone is always on alert to protect what is hidden deep inside. Does this not indicate that they are guarding not just historical artifacts, but something active, alive, requiring constant protection from prying eyes? And isn't the intensity of the security itself indirect evidence that there really is something to hide there? The Vatican Apostolic Library is considered one of the largest repositories of ancient manuscripts in the world. Officially, its collection includes about 80,000 manuscripts and more than 1 million printed books. But that's only what's available to researchers. There is a secret part of the library that even scholars with access to the main collections know little about. This secret part, according to rumors, is located in underground vaults and contains texts that the Church considers too dangerous for public viewing. What exactly is stored in these underground book depositories? Insiders who have worked in the library mention several categories of forbidden materials. The first category is the so-called apocryphal Gospels and other early Christian texts that were not included in the canon. Some of these texts contain versions of Christian history that differ radically from the official one. The Gospels of Judas, Mary Magdalene, and the Gospel of Truth are just a few of those whose existence became known thanks to archaeological finds in the 20th century. How many more such texts are stored in the Vatican's basements? The second category is grimoires and occult manuscripts. For centuries, the Church collected and confiscated magical books from condemned heretics and occultists. Instead of being destroyed, these texts were placed in a special repository. Among them, it is claimed, are copies of the Key of Solomon, the Lesser Key of Solomon, the Black Hen, and other well-known grimoires, in versions that are more complete and ancient than the surviving public copies. Why would the Church keep something it officially condemns? The third category consists of historical documents that compromise the Church. These include Inquisition records describing torture, financial reports on the sale of indulgences, and papal correspondence revealing political intrigues and sexual scandals. Many of these documents have been partially declassified in recent decades, but the most compromising materials remain inaccessible. Of particular interest are documents related to the Second World War and the Vatican's relations with the Nazi regime. The fourth and most intriguing category is ancient texts from the pre-Christian era. It is said that the Vatican archives contain manuscripts from the Library of Alexandria, which was believed to have been destroyed in ancient times. These include texts by Egyptian priests, Babylonian astrological tables, and Greek philosophical treatises unknown to modern science. If these rumors are true, then the Vatican's secret archives contain knowledge that could rewrite the history of civilization. Access to the secret archives is extremely limited. Even cardinals cannot freely study these materials without special permission from the Pope. There is a special position, Prefect of the Secret Archives, who personally controls every request for access to the forbidden texts. The criteria for selecting those who are allowed to view the dangerous materials are unknown, but it is clear that they include absolute loyalty to the Church and guarantees of secrecy. The physical location of the secret repositories is also shrouded in mystery. Officially, they are located in the basements of the Papal Government Palace. However, some witnesses claim that the most secret texts are kept deeper, in those very ancient dungeons, access to which has been closed for several centuries. This would explain the special protection of these areas. We are not just talking about ancient tunnels, but about a repository of knowledge that the Church intends to keep secret at all costs. An interesting question is whether this forbidden knowledge is being used. If the underground libraries really do contain working occult techniques, descriptions of rituals of power, and ancient methods of mind manipulation, is anyone putting this knowledge into practice? Perhaps this is precisely why there are secret groups within the Vatican that have access to forbidden texts and conduct ceremonies in underground halls. In this case, the library becomes not just a repository of dead manuscripts, but an active source of esoteric power, feeding a secret tradition parallel to official Christianity. Isn't the whole history of secret archives a story of how an institution that publicly condemns the occult secretly preserves and uses the most powerful occult knowledge of humanity? Conspiracy theories surrounding the Vatican multiply every year, and the underground chambers of St. Peter's Basilica are central to most of them. From relatively harmless assumptions about hidden treasures to shocking accusations of satanic rituals, the spectrum of versions is extremely wide. But which of these theories have any basis in fact, and which are pure fantasy? One of the most common theories claims that the Vatican's underground chambers contain artifacts and documents, proving the extraterrestrial origin of certain religious knowledge. Supporters of this version point to numerous ancient texts describing gods who came down from heaven and their technologies. The Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, the Spear of Longinus. All these legendary artifacts, according to the theory, are located in Vatican vaults and are technological in nature, not religious. The Church hides them in order to maintain its monopoly on spiritual power. Another theory links the Vatican underground to a global network of Illuminati. According to this version, the Holy See is not an independent center of power, but only one of the nodes in a ramified structure of a secret world government. Underground tunnels allegedly connect the Vatican with other centers of influence around the world through a system of ancient catacombs and modern secret communications. Decisions that determine the fate of nations are made not in open meeting rooms, but in hidden underground rooms during secret initiation ceremonies. The third popular theory concerns predictions and prophecies. In 1917, in the Portuguese city of Fatima, 3 children claimed to have seen the Virgin Mary, who gave them 3 secrets. The third secret was officially revealed by the Vatican in 2000, but many doubt the completeness of the published version. The theory claims that the true content of the third secret of Fatima is so disturbing that it is kept in the deepest basements of the Vatican and includes specific dates and descriptions of catastrophic events of the future. The fourth theory is related to the practice of Satanism at the highest levels of the church hierarchy. This version claims that a group of cardinals and other high-ranking clergy secretly worship Satan, and conduct black masses in the basement of the Basilica.
This theory gained new momentum after a series of scandals involving Catholic priests and the emergence of testimonies from former participants in alleged satanic rituals. Critics point to the lack of direct evidence, but supporters of the theory respond that the lack of evidence is itself proof of the effectiveness of the cover-up. The fifth theory concerns temporary portals or gateways to other dimensions. Some paranormal researchers claim that certain places on Earth have special energetic properties that allow passages to parallel realities to be opened. The Vatican, built on the site of ancient pagan shrines, is allegedly one such point. Underground rituals performed by initiates are intended to activate these portals for communication with non-human entities, from which the adepts receive knowledge and power. The sixth theory links the Vatican's underground passages to Nazi occult programs. It is known that the Third Reich regime was actively interested in esotericism and conducted expeditions in search of magical artifacts. After the end of the war, many Nazi criminals fled through the so-called rat trails, organized with the participation of some Catholic priests. The theory claims that some of the occult artifacts and documents looted by the Nazis ended up in the Vatican, where they are stored in underground hiding places, along with other forbidden materials. How valid are these theories? Most of them have no direct evidence and are based on circumstantial evidence, rumors, and interpretations. However, the Vatican's complete lack of transparency, its categorical refusal to allow independent researchers into the underground chambers, and its aggressive persecution of those who try to uncover the secret, all create fertile ground for the most incredible assumptions. Perhaps the reality is less fantastic than the wildest theories. Or perhaps it is even more shocking than the human imagination can conceive. What exactly is the Holy See hiding in its underground chambers? And isn't the very multiplicity of conspiracy theories a kind of protection for the truth, when the truth is lost among dozens of false versions, and any attempt to reveal it is perceived as yet another conspiratorial fantasy? After traveling through centuries of secrets, rumors, and theories, we come to the key question: what is really hidden in the Vatican's underground chambers? The available facts allow us to draw several reasonable conclusions, although the full picture remains unclear due to the impenetrable veil of secrecy surrounding this topic. The first indisputable fact is that beneath St. Peter's Basilica there is an extensive system of underground rooms, significantly exceeding in size and complexity the officially recognized necropolis and catacombs. This is confirmed by historical documents, eyewitness accounts, and indirect data from modern research. The scale of these underground chambers suggests that they were not built by accident, but for a specific purpose, and were used for many centuries. The second fact is that the Vatican is making extraordinary efforts to keep these underground chambers secret. The level of secrecy and protection is disproportionate to what one would expect from simple historical ruins. This indicates that there is something there whose disclosure poses a serious threat to the Church, whether it be compromising historical evidence, forbidden artifacts, or evidence of ongoing secret activities. The third fact: there is a documented tradition of secret esoteric practices within and around the Catholic Church. From early Christian Gnostic sects to medieval Templars, from Renaissance alchemists to modern Masonic scandals, history shows that official condemnation of the occult has never prevented certain circles within the Church from preserving and practicing forbidden teachings. Fourth fact: people who tried to uncover the secrets of the underground were systematically persecuted, and some disappeared or died under suspicious circumstances. This pattern is too consistent to be a coincidence. Someone has both the motivation and the resources to eliminate any threats to the disclosure of the secret. What does all this mean? The most likely scenario is this: there really is a parallel structure beneath the Vatican, with roots stretching back to pre-Christian times and branches extending to the present day. This structure uses the ancient underground chambers as a place to hold ceremonies, store forbidden knowledge,
and coordinate activities that cannot be disclosed publicly.
The members of this structure occupy high positions in the church and, possibly, the secular hierarchy. The nature of their activities is most likely not related to devil worship in the literal sense, but to the practical application of esoteric techniques to achieve and maintain power. This may include initiation rituals that create a bond between participants, ceremonies that use psychological and possibly paranormal effects to achieve altered states of consciousness, and the application of ancient knowledge about manipulating mass consciousness and controlling social processes. It is important to understand that regardless of whether these practices are effective in an occult sense, they work on a psychological and social level. A group of people bound by secret oaths, possessing information about each other, having gone through the shared experience of forbidden ceremonies. Such a group wields real power. It acts in a coordinated manner, keeps secrets, protects its members, and pursues common goals. Will the full truth about the Vatican's underground chambers ever be revealed? It is unlikely, at least in the foreseeable future. Those who control this secret have enormous resources and centuries of experience in keeping secrets. They have survived the Inquisition, the Reformation, the Enlightenment, the Scientific Revolution, and the Information Age. They have adapted to each new threat of disclosure. However, advances in technology, growing public demands for transparency in institutions of power, and the spread of independent investigative methods are creating new opportunities for those who seek the truth. Each new attempt at infiltration adds a piece to the mosaic. Each new witness, each leaked document brings us closer to understanding what is really happening in the ancient tunnels beneath the heart of the Christian world. Perhaps the real question is not what exactly is hidden in the underground, but whether humanity is ready for this truth. History shows that institutions of power hide information, not only to protect their interests, but sometimes because the disclosure of certain truths can have unpredictable consequences for society. Is the Vatican's silence not an admission of guilt, but an act of protection, not of the Church, but of humanity's very conception of reality? And if the veil of secrecy ever does fall, will we be ready to accept what lies behind it?